And thank you all for coming. This is my first time in life doing something like this.
Oh man, that's even more special.
And I want to pass around a little fake prototype of our product. Get Mark over here, Teddy over here. Just pretend you've got a 10-pound baby and you want to get the right dose of whatever these are. You just sploosh it out and then take the dropper out. The dropper is the key to it. And it just says pounds body weight. And so ideally you're able to fill that up to 10 pounds and get the right dose and not kill your kid. And we just got a patent on being able to do that about 5 minutes ago. And this is our mentor, Mr. Kaufman, Ewing Kaufman. Learning about his story was a great thing for me. Just a fabulous guy in sales. Started out in his garage. And this is one of his first products, Oscal, which was ground up oyster shells for pregnant women. And that has fluoride in it, which is my favorite thing. And that was way before the first prenatal fluorides came out. I'm going to talk today about doses of fluoride and vitamins like polybiflor for babies. And if you get too little, you can end up with little metal caps. That's called nursing caries. And if you get too much, when that child grows up to a teenager, you can get the white spots at this base of the teeth right here. And so we want to end up with just right. And if you're a pediatrician, you're going to start off with newborn babies and you're going to watch these kids grow up. And if they end up with some of these problems, you're going to know about it. This is what the rest of the world is doing, this blue line. And that's the dose of fluoride that they use for babies. And what we want to try to convince them to do is this purple line there, which is dosing exactly by body weight, which is what they're trying to do with their step doses. And we just want to be a little bit more exact. Now for the nursing caries, we're going to get a little bit technical here for about 2 slides. This is a baby tooth. All of this part forms in pregnancy. This little area right here, which is right where the tooth meets the gums, is the part that forms between birth and age 6 months. And then this is nursing caries when they first start. And you'll notice where the cavities are forming is right up there where that enamel was. It forms right at birth. And then later on it gets worse and worse and worse. Same area of the tooth. The rest of the tooth is fine. And the next thing you know, you have to go buy some crowns, which cost about $500 each. And that's the way that is. But if you give too much, so this is the teeth at 6 months. If you give too much fluoride trying to protect that nursing caries area, these are the permanent teeth that are forming. You're going to end up with white spots on those. So it's a very narrow range that you want to be in. And once again, there's the white spots that you'll get from doing that. Ideally, the dose that you would use would be very low right after birth and end up with a translucent edge to the tooth instead of solid white. That's just if your kid's going to be a movie star or whatever, you'd like that. And so now going back to the regular doses, if you wanted to criticize what we want to do, we go from 0 up to the weight line, and that's the same order of magnitude as going from 0 up to the weight line there. It's not quite perfect. So we're going to have another one that goes with age, so you can start at 0 and then eventually catch up to the growth line. But so you can start low right there in the beginning. And that's the end of the technical stuff, I think. No, not quite. So now this is from the Iowa fluoride study, which is about 2,000 kids, a lot of them born right here in Iowa City from about 1992 to 1995. A lot of those kids got too much fluoride. This is, if you get above this dose, you might get the fluorosis, might not. And all you need to get above that is to mix up powdered formula with fluoridated water, your kid eating toothpaste, or you get too much from these fluoride vitamins. Most kids, the 50 percentile, are right in there, pretty close to perfect, no problem. But a lot of the kids also get too little fluoride. Lots of kids are down here below the positive balance, meaning they're peeing out more than they're taking in. And these are the kids that will probably end up with those nursing cavities. And that's about 25% of kids end up with cavities as kids. And that's the end of my 6-minute talk. And we can now take questions, or I can go into some other stories. Andre, thank
Can
you.
you please explain your business model? I didn't get that from the presentation.
Zephan had the same question. Where's the business part of this?
Yeah.
Okay. So we just got a patent on that medicine dropper, and we're hoping to license that to some pharmaceutical companies like Johnson & Johnson with their Tylenol and get a little licensing income.
Okay. Are you working in this solely yourself, or you got a team of people? What's the organization make up?
I've got a team, but we have 0 Ewing Kaufman salespeople. They're all doctors, they're all into fluoride or pediatricians. But no, we don't have a company that can get out there and hustle and produce a product, not even a good prototype, and take it to these companies and say, here, put this with your antibiotics or whatever.
So what's your strategy
To get there.
confirm that licensing deal? What steps are you taking?
Okay. Let me,
This is where you need to go back?
no, I might come back if you guys want some of this weird stuff. All right.
There we go.
Okay. And this is one of the advantages of doing a presentation here, is that Andre and Zephan and some of the other organizers will help you get yourself together. And by hammering me on that question, look, we're business people here. We don't care about those stupid little babies in their teeth. We want to know
Who
about
cares about the babies?
but no, how do you get a business out of it? And so there's a couple of obvious ways, and one is to go to the big companies like Johnson & Johnson and try to, but there are a few problems with that. The little babies that would be most affected by our droppers, consult your doctor, basically below 2 years. So if you're selling just on an over-the-counter product like Tylenol, you're kind of hammered by that. There's a few solutions that probably won't work, and we'll get to those in a minute. I forgot my order here. Another obvious way is to go to companies that have already tried this. We thought we were the first in the world. Turns out we were not. This product does it in kilograms with an antihistamine down in Panama and a few other countries. And we've now got 20 different products in about 5 or 6 different countries where the pharmaceutical companies have actually sold something with a dose by weight dispenser. So we could probably go to these companies, to their US counterparts, and say, would you like to license this? And talk to the guys in Belgium about, their Zithromax, and see if they want to do it here. That might work, might not. Okay, so this is out, and Andre, this is your question, kind of. A very good source to learn about licensing a patented technology is through universities' technology transfer offices. One of the best ones is a few hundred miles east of here at Madison, Wisconsin, called WARF. This guy, Harry Steenbach, invented the way to make vitamin D. And on his own went and got it patented, and that patent virtually paid for their school almost. I mean, it's just a huge success. When you buy vitamin D milk, that came from that technology. They just basically shine ultraviolet light on the milk, and bingo, you've got vitamin D in it. They do it for dog food. They do it for pharmaceuticals, and we'll get into one of those. But basically, vitamin D prevents rickets, and there's normal and rickets legs, and this used to be fairly common in the United States, and they wiped it out by 1945, just by vitamin D in all these different ways. One of the 5 pharmaceutical companies that licensed that vitamin D technology was Mead Johnson over in Indiana. And they're also into my thing, which is helping babies with fluoride. They used to virtually guarantee that their product would work. If your kid got a cavity, they would pay for it. And they would go all the way up to age 15 years. If you started with the program before 1 year and had to send your pharmaceutical receipts that you actually did it and stuff. But it was an amazing program. There's also a lot of struggle in our little business, but a dentist, as part of the American Academy of Pediatrics, put the kibosh on that program. And then a few years later, they changed the dosage schedule to that one we saw a little while ago. It took it away from the newborn babies. And next thing you know, Mead Johnson sold their trademarks. Now another company makes the polybiflor. It's no longer Mead Johnson, but we'll go ahead and work with them. So that would be an obvious way, is to go try to license it to those people. A little bit about Mead. Their first product was a carbohydrate to mix with cow's milk to make baby milk. And they came up with a little feeding calculator. So when you as a parent, when you bought that baby food, it did not tell you how to mix it. There were no instructions. You had to go to your pediatrician. They would spin this little wheel and get their age and weight and tell you how much of that to mix with the milk and the water and stuff. So you had to go to your pediatrician, and the pediatricians loved it. And now we see Tylenol basically doing the same thing. Go to your pediatrician, and that is good advice anyway. We've got one way we might be able to do that if we did the dosing instead of by body weight, by using body surface area, which no human in this room could calculate for their little baby. So you would once again have to go to your pediatrician to get that done, and then you could use this medicine dropper. I don't think that's going to be a solution, but it might. Another possible solution is making it prescription. If you make it prescription, then you can dose it any way you want to. And you could have it be, well, when your baby was born, your pediatrician would offer to write you a script for this. You fill it, and that way in 2 months, if your baby gets a fever late at night, you've got the way to dose it instead of trying to figure out that one where you don't have instructions. Another possible way to get into the marketplace, this is another wild, crazy one, and I've got a few more that are even worse, is to get on Walmart's shelf with they make their own private label acetaminophen. So the Tylenol sells for about $9, $6, and then their Equate sells for much more. We could make something called Exceed that would have our OptiDose dropper with it, and try to maybe not get 15, maybe $9 and be happy, but get something higher than the brand. So instead of being a private label undervalued, be private label higher valued. What's next? Oh, okay. So now to make that one legal, and you could not give dosing instructions below 25 pounds, but you can make it to where maybe parents can figure it out. Okay, now we go. My last two are totally crazy. There are pharmaceutical companies that have PR problems. And OxyContin is Purdue's product. I mean, these are billboards. where people are just screaming at them, but they do have lots of money, and they might like to have a product with a little PR value, and this is their website where they're trying to act like they're doing something about it. But they could have a product, oh, we don't just sell heroin, we also help babies. I don't think that would help either, but we might could do it. And then the final one is we could go to the American Dental Association and give them exclusive rights to the fluoride, and then they could give their seal of approval and license, sub-licenses out to pharmaceutical companies. And I think they would pay for it. And okay, so this is just a reminder, go see your pediatrician, don't be down at this bottom, don't be up at the top. And that's it. Okay. Brandon?
So, yeah, you talked about like a lot of this stuff, if they're younger than 25 months, it's like see your pediatrician,
Right.
all that stuff. Do you currently have connections with pediatricians now, and like what would that look like? 'Cause I feel like maybe a good step, at least either to get connections and or just to learn more information on what their opinions would be, being professionals in like the medical field. Are you currently connected with anyone in the Iowa area? I know just with a lot of the med buildings and dental buildings here, like is there a way to get connected more, or at least have, like, just grab coffee with a few of the people
Right, right.
in that area?
No, thanks, Brendan. I mean, that's one of the next things, and my first question for them is, well, what would they prefer us to do? Should we do this with antibiotics, prescription products? I don't know, but no, we don't, except for one.
Yeah. So I think you want to have salespeople maybe down the road, like if you come up with an idea, but until then, you're just kind of shooting in the dark until you have, because I mean, that's a big gap from 0 to
Hugely in the
25
dark,
months. Like
hugely.
a lot of your work, you're wanting to work with people, or with infants that are younger than that, but obviously it's gonna be more so referred by pediatricians.
Oh,
I think you need to
100%,
get them
yeah,
more in the
100%,
ring,
yeah.
before you do anything else, so you have a more clear-cut path. Like, all right, this makes sense now to go down this path, now let's start building more of a business plan around that, than just
Yeah.
kind of coming up with the top 5 ideas.
Yeah,
You
no,
want, like,
no,
yeah, you're
no,
gonna
I think
go
that's
down
number
there.
one on the list of things to do. Yeah, thanks.
What's your why? Like, why did you get into this, and what was your reasoning behind wanting to start this?
I cut those slides out. I mean, I'm just a construction worker. I've got a degree in genetics, but I have no background in this at all. Okay, I'll give you the 30-second version of the story. So we have a lot of roommates, that's how we survive. And I happened to read a little story about prenatal fluoride when my wife was pregnant with our first child. So we got it, we thought we were cool. And I used to give my kids all the candy they wanted. And one of the roommates, what are you doing? Don't you know you're gonna cause cavities? I said, oh, I'm testing this prenatal fluoride to see if it works. To me, it made sense. And they were roommates and then friends after that for a long time. The kids got to be about 6 years old, still no cavities. So they were impressed. When she went to her doctor, when she was pregnant with her first, the doctor said, no, prenatal fluoride's a spooky, scary thing, and you can't have that. So she wanted me to go down and talk to her doctor, and I'm just a construction guy with a hammer on my belt. So I went to the medical library and started reading papers and took those down to her doctor, and her story turned out fine. Her son is now becoming a pediatrician. He's the guy who's going to help us with the doses. But yeah, so it's just a total fluke, and partly by being an idiot, by giving my kids candy to get that question.
I have another question.
Okay.
So your product, would it be sold to doctors and physicians, or people at home with kids? I was
Yeah, that's tricky. But I think the normal way would be you bring your baby to the pediatrician, for the fluoride vitamins, they are prescription, would write a prescription if it's suitable. You know, if you have high fluoride in your water and you're giving your baby powdered formula, obviously you don't want to do it. So the pediatrician would know what it's right for you and give you the prescription, and then you would buy it at the drugstore. I think. Now, there might be some that we could do in the over-the-counter market, like this plain vitamins and stuff, you could do it maybe. But that's tricky. Now, okay, thanks.
This might be a two-part question depending on how much I understand the answer. Is this a fluoride delivery system, or is it a dosage management system that happens to do fluoride as one of the things that it can measure dosage on?
It depends on whether you're a nut or not. For me, I'm a nut about
Okay.
this stuff, and to me, it's all about fluoride.
Okay.
But I think for the world, and I think to succeed in business, we'd have to go to it's doses for any medicine. It makes sense if you have a 10-pound baby, that a 5-pound baby should get half as much, and a 20-pound baby should get twice as much. It's just logical. It goes with no matter what you're dealing with. But for me, I'm still internally more into the fluoride stuff.
Okay. My only relationship as an adult with fluoride is
Right.
to my toothpaste.
Right.
That's my only understanding of
Right.
why it's important.
Yeah.
And it's my understanding that, there's a fair amount of adults who would seek non-fluoride toothpaste. on
Right.
top of that. So I'm not ready to have that
Yeah.
debate because I have no scientific background.
Right, right.
But as far as the dosage delivery system itself, what are some expansions to that business that you can see?
Right.
Away from fluoride and more into more mainstream medicine that's for
Right.
kids and as a way to kind of extend your product line.
Right, and that's, if I could do that, that would help me the most in business. But like the antibiotics and the, fever medicines, no, I think any medicine that a young child takes, antihistamines should, we could do this with them. And it might be better to start with something like that, and then the more explosive stuff with the fluoride, do that in a few years, do some clinical trials, and make sure we're doing it exactly right and stuff. And I'm gonna come back to something in a minute and use this back button. Mark, go ahead.
I just have a comment. It's not really-
And I want to say, this guy knows all about pharmaceutical sales.
no medical advice. In the healthcare arena, evidence-based medicine will make you or break you.
Right,
There are no gray areas.
Right.
It's black and white.
right,
So when you make a statement about it being better, you have to have evidence-based medicine to
Yep.
support that.
yeah, no, and that's excellent, and we do need to do our clinical trials and stuff. Jay?
So to turn this into a business, to have this be a business, what do you think are your next 2 or 3 steps to getting this to be a viable business?
Well, first I've got to do an annual report. I'm 6 years behind on that. And then coming up with some strategies, which partly goes back to the question of talking to pediatricians and try to get a feel for what would be what should be our priority. Of 10 different products we could come up with, what should we focus on? Maybe which ones have the most evidence to back them up? And maybe to get away from the fluoride. And just to start thinking more about business and less about, research type things, academic things. All right, let me go use my back button here. I've got to warn y'all about something. My grandson's gonna make sure you tell him this part. If you go online and you Google prenatal fluoride, the first 20 pages at least are going to mention that if you give your child prenatal fluoride, the IQ will be lowered. And you'll see this graph and you'll see words like cognitive. They just hammer this stuff. And what they won't mention and I'll bet you won't see it even in the first 20 pages, is, well, okay, let's assume that these numbers are valid. I mean, it's better to be safe than sorry. Let's assume that if your kid got that much prenatal fluoride, you could see some loss of IQ. Let's say that that's true. But what they don't say is that this is the range that your doctor would put you at, or if you drink fluoridated water, you would be at. And in this range, there is no effect. You don't want to go out here anyway, because then you'll start getting into the fluorosis. The other thing they will not mention are the pluses of that prenatal fluoride. There won't be a word in those whole 20 pages about fluoride prevents cavities, and that prevention goes up tremendously to right about that level to where your doctor would take you, and beyond that it goes down dramatically because you start getting into the fluorosis. So you want to be here anyway where there is not an effect, but they will not mention the dental benefits or the dental problems of that dose. There's a few other things they won't mention. This first trial compared prenatal fluoride to starting at birth, and both sets did real well. 90% of the kids were cavity-free at age 5. If you do get into any prenatal fluoride dental effects, it'll say there's no reason, there's no significant difference between starting at birth and starting prenatally, which sounds like there's no significance at all. But 90% cavity-free is pretty darn good, and they won't mention what your odds are if you don't do it. But the best that I can give you a good citation on was about 25% of the kids get cavities. But this for 2 to 5 years old. These are for 5 years old. So you're also looking at 2-year-olds in here. This is, I think, about 50%. That even though this is not significant, either one of these is hugely better than doing nothing. They also won't tell you that when they changed the doses to what we saw a little while ago, the number of kids that are cavity-free dropped. And they might mention how fluoride was discovered. This fellow named Dean, H. Trimley Dean. And they'll say, oh, that was great, but they won't mention the statistics. That the kids that got no fluoride in their water had 16 times as many cavities as the kids who got the fluoride in their water, just in naturally fluoridated water. Right over in Illinois, by the way. It's right, Galesburg and Monmouth. You might go through those towns. And they also, last thing they won't mention is what we call pits and fissures. I know you can't see this, but if you have fluoride while teeth are forming, the teeth are very smooth, and if you don't, you end up with these pits and fissures on top of the teeth that end up trapping food and getting cavities. And they won't mention that, and that's a huge prenatal fluoride effect. It goes from 28% of the kids having teeth like that to 0. And that also won't mention. And Andre, okay.
You have a question?
Sorry, just one last kind of comment though. Kind of going back, like, it definitely seems like you have a lot of the passion in the fluoride area. And
So, you can say fanaticism.
Yeah, but like, and I know you said like kind of a nut about it. I think if you take the right steps, you're not going to be a nut, you're going to actually know your why. I think if you're just trying to talk about it from your own knowledge of fluoride, it'll look nutty, but if you're having those pediatric, like, people helping in, like, a lot of this seems more prescribed. Like, I'd rather have pediatric, like, people, like, helping you out of saying, hey, you can be a resource to us when we're prescribing to people, rather than it being like, hey, I'm gonna go on my Facebook rant and out of nowhere, charcoal toothpaste and these toothpastes are all fighting me right now, and we're all getting this trend war. I think it's more of, you wanna be with the people that are able to make better decisions, and I think able to do better research than just your own. With that, if you bring them into the room with you, it's gonna solidify that a lot more. If you're going down the fluoride path.
Sure.
So I'd say, it's the next step is going to determine whether it's you're knowing your why and you're moving right, or you're being not kind of.
Right, right. No, that's absolutely correct. Thank you, yeah.
Ray, what can we do as an entrepreneurial community to help you out?
Well, first of all, you've obviously already done a whole lot. This presentation got me to moving. I enjoyed Ewing Coughlin's story a whole lot, and I've enjoyed the suggestions here today. I could use some help with graphics, 3D printing, making
Designers here?
prototypes.
Anybody do graphic design? 3D printing, prototyping? We got Proto Studios, Chuck's not in today, but I'm sure I can introduce you to Chuck.
Right. If anyone is going to any of those countries, Switzerland, Italy, Belgium, Panama, that have had these products, it'd be good to send somebody over there at their own expense.
I was gonna say, on your dime. Everybody in this room.
Okay, well, how about Italy?
You might have to, hey, you're gonna have to do work, you might have to put some funds together and get them to do that for you, man.
And just go into a pharmacy or whatever and see if those products are still around, if there's new ones, which ones have been
Somebody do
dropped
some
or whatever.
research for you.
Just some on the, troops on the ground. And that idea of talking to pediatricians. I mean, one of the next things I want to go do is go talk to as many pediatricians as I can and just see what, what they think.
Sweet. Let's give it up for Ray.